Welcome to another week of Cowboys Special Edition brought to you by AT&T. I'm George Reba. The Cowboys had the weekend off last weekend thanks to the bye week, and because of that extra time off, they have more time to prepare for their next game. Dallas was very busy making a huge trade and also making a coaching change. The open week turned out to be a busy time for the Cowboys. First, there was a trade that brought wide receiver Amari Cooper to Texas. Then this past week, Dallas dismissed offensive line coach Paul Alexander, who was less than halfway into his first year with the team.
Paul, I have the utmost respect for him as a person and as a pro. Obviously, he's been doing this at a high level for a long time. We just felt like for what we want to accomplish with our team, this was the right move to make. And again, we felt like we had great answers for it. Give Mark an opportunity. He's had a big role for us the last few years. That role's gotten bigger and bigger. And again, he in tandem with HUD, we believe is going to get what we want for our offensive line.
It's no secret that the Cowboys' offense overall has been struggling and is ranked 28th in the league. The passing offense is ranked even lower at 29th. Mark Colombo, the team's assistant offensive line coach, who also played offensive tackle for the team from 2005 to 2010, has replaced Alexander.
His overall energy is just, he's been a player and recently been a player. And, I think he just connects with us well. And, he just brings a ton of energy to our group. And, we're excited to work with him.
Well, he knows as a player what we need and what we need to get fixed.
The Cowboys also added Hudson Houck in an advisory role. He was the team's offensive line coach for two of the Cowboys' Super Bowl wins in the 90s.
His resume speaks for itself. He's been part of some of the greatest O-lines. And I think it's great to bring in, a guy not only that Colombo played for, but someone with all that knowledge and that can help be an advisor to us and to him.
The struggles on the offensive line became a concern even before the season began when Dallas lost center Travis Frederick to a rare autoimmune disease. In their last game in Washington, Dallas had just 73 yards rushing on a day. Running back Ezekiel Elliott was held to just 33 yards.
I would say it's definitely more inconsistent. I think it's either we played well or we haven't played that well at all. So, that's just something we got to be clued into going into the rest of the season and making sure that that we're coming out and being able to run the ball consistently for the remainder of the season.
Protecting the quarterback has also become a concern. Dak Prescott has been sacked 23 times this season. That's ahead of the pace of his rookie year when he was sacked 25 times, and last year when the number was 32. Coming up next, we'll hear from Chief Operating Officer Stephen Jones, who will give us more background on the changes on the coaching staff as we continue on Cowboy Special Edition, brought to you by AT&T.
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, is brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. GEICO, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. The Salvation Army, doing the most good. And by AT&T, more for your thing. That's our thing. This segment is brought to you by the Texas Lottery. Play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket from the Texas Lottery today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big.
Welcome back to Cowboy Special Edition, brought to you by AT&T. Time now to check in with the Chief Operating Officer, that's Stephen Jones, as he brings us up to date on a very, very busy bye week. Here now is Nick Eatman from DallasCowboys.com.
Thank you, George. And as always, we're joined by Stephen Jones, Cowboys Chief Operating Officer. And coming off the bye week, you got your batteries recharged a little bit, but you did make some news. We talked about it last week, the trade with Amari Cooper. Let's talk a little bit now. He's getting ready to play his first game Monday night. What do you like so far from your new receiver?
Well, I think, first of all, the guys came back with great energy after getting a break. I've had some great practices this week, and, I think ready to, play this last half of the season with a lot of energy and hopefully play well and get on a run here. In terms of Amari, this week he really, looked to be the player we thought we were trading for. And certainly I think he shows that he's got elite burst and energy, speed in terms of stretching the field, which I think can only help us when you're looking at what we're trying to do with Zeke and running the football And then I think he'll also be really big for our other receivers in our core, whether it be the tight end group or whether it's a Michael Gallup or a Cole Beasley. I think really having this piece in our offense can really make a difference for us. Now they've got to go out and execute and do things that you know you have to do to move the ball in this league. But certainly, I think this added boost in terms of skill and speed is going to help us.
Certainly not the only trade made in the NFL. We can talk a little bit more about why we're seeing more of that. But the way I've kind of described it is the Cowboys' philosophy is you could buy a player or you could rent one. Some other teams did it a different way. Eagles obviously acquired Golden Tate, Texans Demaryius Thomas. Were those guys ever mentioned on your radar, or were you looking at this more like this guy will help us down the road a little bit more?
Yeah, we kind of continue to have a long-term outlook on our personnel. And I think one of the things, Amari checked all the boxes. He could not only help now in terms of being an elite receiver to really help our offense right now, but he's 24 years old. And I think he fits right in with that young group of offensive linemen, Zeke, Dak, the whole crew. So, you know, we looked at those guys. We just felt really at the end of the day, we really liked Amari coming out. He went to 2 Pro Bowls right off the bat. He's young, and really I think he's going to be around here for many years to come.
The Redskins add a safety. The Eagles, like we said, get a wide receiver. Those moves expected as far as, hey, the Cowboys did something. We got to make sure and stay on pace here.
You know, you never know what teams are, if they're going to pull the trigger or not. I think everybody has their strategy in terms of what they're trying to get accomplished. Certainly with the East being more wide open, I think it does make sense, whether it be us, whether it be the Eagles or the Redskins, who, you know, in one shape, form, or another are still in the mix in terms of trying to win the East. So it doesn't surprise me, but you never know for sure, you know, when someone's going to really pull the trigger on a trade.
Can you put your finger on why it seems like it was almost like baseball trade deadline? I mean, a lot of moves happening. A few years ago, we didn't hardly see any trades at all throughout the season. Has something changed in the way contracts are done that we're seeing more trade?
You know, I think if I were to put my finger on one thing, it's just understanding the compensatory system now more than ever. Are you going to sign that player? If you're not, then what would you get in terms of compensatory? I know, you know, when we look at players, if you're not for sure going to sign them, you know also that if you're not going to be playing free agency, which, you know, lately because we've done such a good job of drafting, we're signing more of our own players and not playing in free agency, then, you know, well, we may get that pick back. You know, it may be a year later, but may get that pick back in terms of a compensatory. So I think more and more people are just getting their hands around that compensatory system. I think more and more people are getting their hands around who they're going to be signing, who they're not going to be signing. And I think that's why you're seeing more trades.
That's good to know. I've been here 20 years. I still don't understand the whole compensatory and how the formula and how these guys get it back. But you understand it. It makes a lot of sense about the trade there. Obviously, you've had some other moves we made during the week. We're going to keep you right here. We're going to throw it back to George. And when we do, we're going to talk about some of these new changes on the offensive line.
Absolutely.
All righty, thank you very much, Nick. Coming up next, we'll hear from the team's kicker who has made 88% of his field goals so far this season. As Cowboys Special Edition, brought to you by AT&T, continues.
This segment was brought to you by the Texas Lottery. Play the Dallas Cowboys scratch ticket from the Texas Lottery today. It's your ticket for a chance to win big. Here we go. This segment is brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas.
Welcome back to Cowboys Special Edition, brought to you by AT&T. Through 7 games so far this season, place kicker Brett Maher has shown that he's a kicker with loads of talent. He hasn't been perfect so far, but in the pressure-filled world of kicking field goals, no one is. Being a place kicker in the NFL takes a special breed. So when Brett Maher walks onto a field, shutting out the crowd noise becomes priority number 1.
For me, I try and stick to my routine, whether it's in practice, whether it's in games. I try to make every single kick the exact same and kind of have in the forefront of my mind that every kick is worth 3 points, whether it's in practice, whether it's in the first quarter, fourth quarter, no matter what the situation is, and try and go about every single one that way and not play too much into what the moment is.
When the final cuts were announced in August, Maher had suddenly replaced 8-year veteran Dan Bailey, who holds a team record with 30 field goals in a row. For Maher, he missed his first attempt, then strung together 16 in a row before missing a game-tying kick in Washington. That's very similar to what Bailey did, who hit 26 in a row his first year.
The makeup is really everything. Obviously, both those guys are very talented physically, but the number one trait for a kicker is his mind. And each of those guys, Dan for so many years here, such a strong-minded guy, such a mentally tough guy in so many different situations where he made big kicks for us. And I think Brett has a lot of the same qualities. And
those qualities are unique and require a kicker to focus, and then refocus. Concentration is the name of the game.
Got a guy that I work with, a peak performance specialist that I work with. I've been working with him for almost 2 years, and we've kind of zoned in on, what I do that needs to stay consistent and things that I can and can't control, and really focusing in on those kind of things.
Ironically, Maher had attended a Cowboys training camp before, back in 2013. When he came back 5 years later, his experience in the Canadian Football League prepared him like never before.
We talked about it many times, just his arc since coming back here, all through the spring and through training camp, just day after day after day. Didn't say a whole lot, very professional in his approach, and just literally made every kick. Every day it was 6 for 6, 6 for 6, 6 for 6.
For me, it was, I'd been told no, told, you keep working, you need to get better at this, you need to get better at that. And, I feel like until I really said, all right, this is enough, I need to take my stuff to the next level, because you're getting the same result every single time. And I think the last year and a half, I've really been able to do that.
As a rookie, every stadium he walks into this year is new. Believe it or not, he uses the internet to help him prepare.
Stadiums from everywhere have, they've got pictures up. There's a lot of 360 views from down on the field, so you can kind of get an idea of the environment that you're walking into. And for me, so I'm not going in there on Sunday and having it be the first time even though it's the first time I've seen it in real life, I still kind of have some pictures in my head, and made a few kicks there in my head as well going into the week.
Coming up, we'll continue our conversation with Chief Operating Officer Stephen Jones as Dallas gets ready for their only appearance on Monday Night Football as we continue on Cowboys Special Edition, brought to you by AT&T.
This segment was brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. This segment is brought to you by AT&T. More for your thing. That's our thing.
Welcome back to Cowboys Special Edition. We now rejoin our conversation with Chief Operating Officer Stephen Jones. Here now is Nick Eatman from DallasCowboys.com.
Thanks again, and we are joined by Stephen Jones again. We talked before about the trade for Amari Cooper. You had a new receiver coming in. You're excited about him. You also made some changes on the offensive line. It's not something that we see a lot. The dismissal of offensive line coach Paul Alexander. Could you talk a little bit about what went into that decision here midway through the year?
Well, I think unfortunately for Coach Alexander, who by the way did bring some good things to our offensive unit, and in terms of some of the skills that they can incorporate, the techniques that they can incorporate into their game. I think he brought some really positive things to the table. Unfortunately, as a group, we hadn't performed as well as we hoped, and certainly doesn't fall right at the feet of Paul. We were missing Travis, still are missing Travis Frederick, but just felt like, a change there might give a little energy to the group here as we make the turn at the bye. And a very difficult move to make. As I said, certainly have a lot of respect for Paul. Obviously, though, at the end of the day, we felt like it was in our best interest to make a change, to have some new leadership there with that offensive line group.
How much does it affect that you have a guy in Mark Colombo that has not only played, but he's been here for the last few years as an assistant offensive line coach? I'm sure that factored into the decision, knowing that maybe these guys will gravitate towards him a little bit better. Well,
two things were important. One, Mark was always a student of the game when he played. He was always one of our top guys in terms of leaders in the room. And then, of course, he transitioned into being an offensive line coach and has really brought a lot of energy to the table. I think really knows what we're trying to get accomplished. He's learned a lot from being around Frank, from being around to some degree. I think he was here for a year helping us in scouting when Bill Callahan was here. And then, of course, the other key thing was to get to bring Hud back. Hudson Houck has been a mainstay here with the Cowboys for many years. He's a big part of what we're about and a big part of what helped make the decision that he could come in here and mentor Mark to some degree, as Mark made this transition from being an assistant line coach to being the head man in the room, if you will, in terms of coaching this, I think one of the best offensive line groups in football.
You see guys come back for a second stint before, rarely a third for Hudson Houck. But like you said, he's coached some great offensive linemen. I mean, back to Larry Allen, Nate Newton, and then even Colombo and Tyron Smith. He's been working with Tyron Smith when he was a rookie. So even though the game changes a lot, still when you're talking about schemes and on blocking offensive linemen up front, he's done it before. He could do it again.
Well, he's been one of the best in the business. He was always highly thought of around the NFL. He was always a guy that, if he wasn't coaching for the Cowboys, there were teams lined up to want to have him. And I think when you have that book of knowledge, if you will, that Hud has, certainly so much respect for him, and for him to be able to bring that and help incorporate that with Mark as he starts to take the next steps to being he is our headline coach, but to start his career there, I think he's a huge mentor to have for Mark Colombo.
And good luck, because the Tennessee Titans are coming in Monday night. They got a defensive tackle, Casey, right in the middle. He's pretty good, so he's going to get his feet wet right off the bat here.
Well, we've just, we got some good defenses we played this year, and the Titans are right up there at the top. They've been very stingy, giving up points to some degree, a team a lot like us. And their offense hadn't been necessarily hitting on all cylinders, but you never know when it's going to turn on. And, of course, their defense is very difficult to move the ball against.
Real quick, you're going to have a guy in the booth coming back Monday Night Football, Jason Witten. What's it been like just to have you got a chance to listen to him a little bit on some of the games?
I have. I think he's doing outstanding. And, of course, if there's anyone who's ever going to perfect his trade, it's Jason Witten. He's got to be one of the hardest workers in anything that he does, and certainly it's going to be great to get to see him in person. We certainly miss him out here as a leader on this football team, as one of the all-time great football players to ever wear a Cowboys uniform. Sure, he's going to be in that Hall of Fame sooner than later, and just be a treat to have him call our game, and hopefully get to spend a little time with him when he comes back here to work on our football game.
Maybe in that Ring of Honor as well, but I know you can't comment on that, but I'm sure that's a given as well. Thanks again for joining us, Stephen. We know how busy you are, even on the bye week. A lot of stuff going on. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week talking about victory against the Titans.
That'd be great.
All right, George, back to you.
Coming up, we'll wrap up the show on Cowboys Special Edition.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T. More for your thing. That's our thing.
Monday Night Football returns to AT&T Stadium when your Cowboys take on the Tennessee Titans. Tickets are going fast. Act now before they sell out.
Elliott to the pylon. Touchdown.
Visit DallasCowboys.com to get your tickets today.
Welcome back to Cowboys Special Edition, brought to you by AT&T. Next week, we'll take a look back at the team's first and only game of the year on Monday Night Football against the Titans. Tennessee hasn't played at AT&T Stadium since the 2010 season, and just like the Cowboys, the Titans are also looking for their fourth win of the year. Next week, we'll also look ahead to the team's first meeting of the year against the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles in Philadelphia. It'll be the first of back-to-back road games for the Dallas Cowboys. That's our show this week. Thanks for watching. I'm George Reba.
Special Edition, presented by AT&T, was brought to you by Ford. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer. Ford is the best in Texas. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. AT&T, more for your thing. That's our thing. And by NFL Game Pass. You'll never miss a game again. Enjoy full access to coaches' film and game replays from Week 1 to the Super Bowl. Subscribe at DallasCowboys.com/Game Pass.